Allahu Akbar, Allah.
He had ruled Iran for 35 years. Through wars and sanctions, through revolutions and crackdowns, through nuclear negotiations and broken deals. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, had outlasted 6 U.S. presidents, survived assassination plots, and steered the most powerful theocracy in the Middle East through crisis after crisis. On the morning of February 28, 2026, his time ran out. The decision to strike Iran was not made in a moment. It had been building for years. Through the wreckage of the 2015 nuclear deal, through Trump's maximum pressure campaign, through Iran's accelerating uranium enrichment and its brutal suppression of its own people. Over the New Year period of 2026, Iranian security forces had turned their guns on protesters following the collapse of the national currency. Reports from inside the country would later suggest as many as 30,000 civilians were killed by the regime. The world watched. Trump issued ultimatums.
End the bloodshed. Come back to the table or face something very tough.
Iran did not come back to the table. Not fast enough. Not in the way Washington demanded. For months, U.S. military assets had been quietly massing in the region. Carrier groups repositioning, strike packages being prepared, intelligence assets feeding coordinates into targeting systems. Israel had been ready for years. There was one more factor. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio would later reveal that American intelligence believed Israel was already on the verge of launching its own unilateral strike on Iran. The United States stepped in, not to prevent a war, but to control one.
That if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so...
The Americans had decided, if there was going to be a war, they would fight it on their terms. On the night of February 27th, less than 12 hours before the first missiles crossed into Iranian airspace, something extraordinary was happening in the Omani capital. Oman had long served as a back channel between Washington and Tehran. And on that final night, Omani mediators reported that the latest round of nuclear negotiations had reached a critical breakthrough. Iran, they said, had agreed to terms that would guarantee it would never develop a nuclear weapon.
The most important achievement, I believe, is the agreement that Iran will never ever have a nuclear material that will create a bomb.
The diplomats in Muscat believed they had done it. After years of failure and recrimination, a deal was finally in their hands. In Washington and Tel Aviv, the order had already been issued. The bombs were already in the air. The deal in Oman died before the ink was dry. Some wars begin with a declaration. This one began with a silence. The first wave of strikes hit at dawn. U.S. and Israeli aircraft and missiles, coordinated across multiple vectors, struck cities and military installations simultaneously across Iran. The attack was described by U.S. officials as massive and ongoing.
To the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered, don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
Within hours, more than 750 people were confirmed dead. Among them, 175 children sheltering inside a school in southern Iran that was struck during the raids. And then the news that changed everything. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, was dead.
بعد از عمری مجاهدت حسینی و دائمی و خستگی ناپذیر روح بلند و ملکوتی کوه نستوه ولایت پدر مهربان امت رهبر و امام مسلمین حضرت آیت الله العظما سید علی حسینی خامنه ای در راه سربلندی حرم جمهوری اسلامی ایران شهد گوارای شهادت را نوشیدند و به ملکوت اعلی پیوستند.
Newsrooms scrambling, market indicators spiking, the world pausing collectively to absorb what had just happened. Khamenei had led Iran since 1989. In the theology of the Islamic Republic, the supreme leader was not merely a head of state. He was God's representative on earth, the guardian of the revolution, the final word on everything from nuclear policy to women's dress codes. No one in the history of the Islamic Republic had ever filled his role. Until now, no one had needed to. The killing of Khamenei was not an accident. It was the centerpiece of a deliberate strategy, what military planners call a decapitation strike. The targeted elimination of an enemy state's leadership intended to shatter its command structure and its will to fight. Alongside Khamenei, several of Iran's most senior regime officials were killed in the raids. The precise list of names would take days to emerge through the fog of war and Iran's own information blackout. But the intent was clear. The strikes were not designed merely to destroy military hardware. They were designed to destroy the men who commanded it. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iran's most powerful military force, responsible for its missile program, its regional proxy network, and its internal security, had lost key figures in the strikes. Iran's chain of command had been severed at multiple points simultaneously. The question the world was now asking, the question Iranian officials scrambling to restore order were asking, was simple and terrifying. Who is in charge of Iran now? The streets of Tehran, people gathered around phones and televisions, uncertain faces, fear, anger, grief. Under the Iranian constitution, the Assembly of Experts, a body of senior clerics, holds the authority to appoint a new supreme leader. But the assembly had never exercised this power under fire, in the middle of a war, with its country under attack and its leader freshly killed. Iran had been struck at its heart. Its response would depend entirely on who, in that chaos, could seize control. The Islamic Republic had always presented itself as a system, not dependent on any one man, grounded in ideology and religious law rather than personality. Khamenei himself had insisted this. The revolution, he said, was bigger than any individual. Now that claim was being tested as it never had been before. Iran is, despite its theocratic structure, a complex and diverse nation, culturally rich, ethnically varied, home to reformist movements that had been repeatedly throttled by the state. Across the country, there were opposition groups with widespread popular support whose leaders were either in exile abroad or living under heavy surveillance at home. The strikes had killed the supreme leader, but they had not, by any means, resolved the question of what came next, for Iran, for the region, or for the Iranian people themselves. Global Witness and the United Nations called loudly and clearly, whatever came next, the people of Iran deserved the right to elect a representative government that genuinely respected human rights. Not a new theocrat appointed under fire. Not a regime installed by outside powers. A free choice. The bombs had fallen. The future of Iran, who would govern it, what kind of country it would become, remained unwritten. The killing of a sitting head of state, even one as controversial as Khamenei, sent shockwaves through the international order. This was not a targeted drone strike on a militia commander. This was the deliberate killing of the supreme leader of a major nation-state, alongside multiple senior members of his government. The UN Secretary General called for an immediate ceasefire and de-escalation. The word used in diplomatic circles was unprecedented. Even those who despised the Islamic Republic found themselves confronting the implications of what had just happened.
I consider essential that these negotiations go on. I think it would be unrealistic to expect to such a complex problem, long-lasting problem, could be resolved in the first session of a negotiation. So we need negotiations to go on, and we need a ceasefire.
Iran's retaliation, already underway with missiles and drones striking U.S. military positions and Gulf state energy infrastructure, was not yet directed by a coherent central command. It was, at least in part, the autonomous response of military units whose chain of command had been shattered. That made it more dangerous, not less. Military's On-1 success, declared closed by Iranian forces. The world was watching a power vacuum open at the center of the Middle East and wondering, with dread, what would fill it. 35 years of rule ended before sunrise. A nuclear deal within reach, shredded hours before it could be signed. A nation of nearly 90 million people, leaderless, under bombardment, on the edge of a war that was already spreading beyond any one country's ability to control. This is what a decapitation strike looks like, not in the clean language of military briefings, but in the long days afterward. The silence in the palaces, the arguments in the assembly rooms, the ordinary people on the streets who did not choose this on any side. What comes next for Iran is not yet written, but the story of how it came to this, the failed diplomacy, the brutal crackdowns, the intelligence failures, the decisions made in secure rooms far from the consequences, is a story that demands to be told in full. Because the supreme leader is dead, and the world has no idea what rises in his place.